Hey everybody, it's Mike Less, aka Farmhand Mike. I am in Greenford, Ohio at Less Farms, and here is my dad coming down the drive right now on a white Workhorse 195 tractor pulling a Salford Tillage Tool. This is the farm where I earned my first paycheck. I grew up right across the road from here. This is my grandma and grandpa Less's farm. There's a look at them right now, and they had the farm here, and you're going to see another drone shot I took a few years ago. That was the old chicken buildings. That was kind of behind my house where I grew up. In this video we're going to do a little bit of tillage and a little bit of planting and a little bit of the history of my family. I'm heading out to the field right now in my dad's Kubota UTV or RTV, whatever it is. Anyways, makes a pretty nice ride, makes the video thing pretty easy getting from field to field. So I was just here the one evening. I didn't get all the action, but we got the white 195 Workhorse, like I said, and a Salford Tillage Tool. That's my dad in there running that. And we're also going to get some footage of my cousin John in his John Deere 6190R pulling an 8-row John Deere corn planter. Got some great on the ground and drone footage, both of these machines. So the Lesses started farming in this area in approximately 1915 when my great-grandpa moved from Dubuque, Iowa, where he grew up on a farm, and bought this place here. He lived at another farm just up the road a little bit, and we'll point that out later in the video. There's a look at my great-grandparents, who I barely remember. He was known as Big Grandpa. He was 6'6". And I'm going to talk about this barn here later that says Paul E. Less. That was originally on this farm, and that had burned. It was Labor Day weekend when I was, I think, in junior high, from what I can remember. And it was right in that spot right there where that tan barn is. Later on, after my great-grandpa passed away, my Uncle Paul, or my dad's Uncle Paul, built the newer house there and farmed this ground. This was all apple trees back in the day, and that is the reason my great-grandpa moved here from Iowa. He wanted to start an apple orchard, and don't ask me how he did his research back in the day, but they said he did his research, and Mahoning County, Ohio was supposed to be a great place to start an apple orchard or a fruit farm. Of course, this farm connected to what was my grandpa's farm too. My cousin John farms all this now, rents this part of it off my dad's cousin Diane. But anyways, like I said, this was all apple trees back in the day. When I went on the payroll for my grandpa, he had probably 25 acres of apple orchard at that time, and then before that he had a lot more. So I hated the apples, actually, other than eating them. I hated pruning apples. Picking apples wasn't so bad, but when I was a kid I always wanted to be a dairy farmer. But I never wanted to be a fruit farmer or have an apple orchard, but I guess looking back now it wasn't that bad. So back in 1915 when my great-grandpa moved here, he come by boxcar out of Iowa. I'm told he loaded up all his possessions on a boxcar in Iowa and brought the train here in the Greenford, Ohio area. And his family come later. So my grandpa was actually born here in Ohio. A couple of the kids were born in Iowa and moved here, but like I said, my grandpa and Uncle Paul, or my dad's Uncle Paul, but they were born here in Ohio. And my grandpa, Uncle Paul, Uncle Joe, and Uncle John all had apple orchards as well. You see a church in the background there. That is called Locust Grove Church. I've never been in that. It was a half a mile from my house. Never been in the church. But there's a farm right across the road from that was apple orchard. And that was actually the first farm my great-grandpa moved to for a few years before he bought the other one that I showed you. There's a picture of my dad and I thought I'd get a little selfie here while I was talking to him. But anyways, just a little history you might find interesting. On that farm when my grandpa moved here, my family being all Catholic, the KKK actually burned a cross in his yard for them being Catholic. It's not something we think of every day when we think of the KKK, but you can do some reading up on it and some history. It's pretty interesting. And when I was a kid, there was a lot of apple orchards in this area. My dad also talks about cherry trees, where his grandpa had a lot of cherry trees, and I remember some peach trees when I was a kid too. We grew a lot of sweet corn when I was a kid, about 120 acres of sweet corn, and we would always work that ground down in the summer and plant a cover crop. And I always remember in August working sweet corn ground to plant the cover crop. I'd go buy some apple trees that were Molly Delicious. That was my favorite apple. and I would always stop and load up on Molly Delicious apples and probably eat 10 of them in an afternoon. And of course, I spent a lot of hours in a tractor or on a tractor in these fields, working ground back in the day. A lot of these fields used to just seem so big, and now they don't really seem big at all with the equipment I'm around nowadays. But this has been the primary tillage practice here. They've been using this Salford quite a bit and then planting corn right into it. So this is down in the valley here, so the field you're seeing my cousin John plant right there, that's been a field as far as I always remember, not an apple orchard. And then the green field there that was in wheat, or is in wheat right now, that was my grandpa's. That was the dividing line between Grandpa Francis and Uncle Paul's place. There was never any John Deere equipment on the farm when I was growing up. My cousin John's converted a few of the pieces over to John Deere, which John Deere's about the only dealer left around now. We had a white dealer just about 4 or 5 miles down the road, and then we had a Ford tractor dealer about 6 or 7 miles to the north. So them were the primary tractors used on these farms back in the day, Whites and Fords, and of course Olivers and Minneapolises. And my grandpa custom farmed a field that the white dealer owner owned, so he was kind of committed to buy white tractors and stuff. He used to go over there and plant it all, cultivate, side dress it, and harvest it in the fall. But like I said, John Deere dealer is about the only one left in town, and most of the versatile stuff is just a little bit big for over here. Anyhow, the primary crops on this farm now are corn, soybeans, and wheat. There is still a few apple trees left, not too many, and Cousin John grows a good number of acres of green beans and pumpkins. And if you go back on my channel, you can find other videos from the farm here, planting green beans, combining wheat, working ground, and so forth. And maybe someday I can get over here. Still a lot of the tractors that were on the farm when I was a kid are still in the barns and stuff. Some of them don't get used very much anymore, but always looking for some new video opportunity on some of them. And there's still a white 60, an American Series 60 on the farm that they use to mow some orchard with and some waterways and stuff. That's one I'd really like to get a video of. Just need to work on the timing of that. Anyways, there's still several more minutes left in this video. I will quit rattling on and enjoy. Thanks for watching.